Hello and welcome to this video about the anomalies I've heard in Lay All Your Love on Me. I had a question from a subscriber wondering how ABBA managed to get this great choral effect. You can't say for certain, obviously, but I can make a guess, and it's an educated guess. This book, which was released in the 70s, ABBA by ABBA, long since out of print, so I'm quite lucky to have a copy, has an interview with Tretow, who was the engineer on ABBA's songs. Now, this is talking about Ring Ring in 1973, but it's not unfeasible that they still used similar methods even later in their career. It said Mika can credit his inventiveness with at least one very essential ingredient of ABBA's special sound. I had to fool them into using it the first time, laughs Mika. Haha. We had just installed a variable speed control at Metronome. I was working by myself one night and discovered that if I played the same instrument twice and changed the speed of the tape recorder, I could make the instrument sound enormous. We sat up at my place the evening before Ring Ring and talked about the things Phil Spector did. I read about him recording the drums 5 times to get a special sound, and ABBA thought that we could do it that way too. We had already recorded one set of instrumental tracks, and now we were to do yet another, which would be laid on top of the first. I changed the speed of the tape recorder on the sly. Ooh. It was a risky thing to do, considering the expense of musicians and studio time that would be wasted if it failed. But it turned out well, and that's how we got the sound that is ABBA's alone. For some reason, no foreign producer has discovered it. At least I haven't heard any other than an ABBA record with that sound. Now it's an important part of my style as an engineer. So obviously they were into this sort of wall of sound thing, and it isn't unfeasible to think that they sort of layered the vocals on over the top of each other, slightly adjusting the speed each time. It's also quite obvious that in the song they've edited the verses and choruses together. The choruses and verses are 2 different performances. Obviously, you'd have to work very hard to get that overly chorused reverb sound, and that tends to not work so well with fast numbers. So the verses they've made quite dry in terms of reverb. I have to say that Agnieszka's voice is absolutely superb on it, and so what I'm about to say about the song in no way is any criticism of it. I think it's an absolutely superb recording, and another key ingredient to this is the actual bass playing, which is absolutely fantastic and in a way works to glue the edits together. So here we go with the first Anomaly. Because bass players tend to be panned to the centre of the stereo spectrum, when you listen out of phase, the bass quite often disappears, and at 29 seconds out of phase you can hear how quite a bassy chorus, where bass is provided by other instruments, switches, mixes, and it's very evident the bass disappears altogether. Now when you listen on headphones you can hear a slight timbral change as the different performances are cut into each other. The bass does a good job of hiding it though. It just jumps up an octave. There is a definite timbral change even in the sequencers, even when you listen on headphones, even on speakers you can hear it. Okay, here you can hear out of phase, a skip in the cymbal track, and listening on headphones or even on speakers, if you watch your CD timer very carefully, at that point you will hear a skip in everything. Not exactly an anomaly, but interesting nonetheless. You can hear a lovely galloping style synthesizer that comes in at that point. It sounds lovely on its own, but it's also very evident in the actual proper mix. As well as being quite a groovy special effect, the glissando going down just before the chorus of each verse acts as a vehicle with which to sort of hide the edit between the verses and the choruses. In verse 1, the edit is done in the middle of the word you, as in I beg of you, and then you can hear at 1:13 just like a little glitch in the middle of it before it slides down. Now, in stereo, you can hear just an extra voice coming in at 1 minute 11 seconds, which hides the edit quite skillfully. Out of phase at 125, 126-ish and 132, there are two quite loud snares. Now, the only reason why you would hear a snare that loud is if it's extreme left or right out of phase. So what's happened is that has concealed an edit point where the end of the chorus has been joined back into the second verse. Listening on headphones, and you do need to listen on headphones here, the loud snare is actually slightly to the left of the other snares, so it's coming from a different place. Very, very sneaky and crafty. It's not quite so obvious on headphones at 132, but out of phase there you can hear that loud snare plus a tiny bit of tape wear afterwards, which to me suggests another edit. There's a very loud pop here, which is audible even in the car. A very obvious edit from the chorus into verse 3, which is also quite sudden if you're listening in stereo. Here there's an edit in Agnetta's singing in the word incomprehensible. It sounds like the in that has been tacked onto the front of comprehensible, and the in bit wobbles as a result. Am I imagining it here, or does everything start to speed up until you get to the chorus where it steadies up again? If you tap along with it, especially when you get to the words, because everything is new and everything is you, it seems to be hard to to keep the beat there. It also speeds up in the fade out as well. Right, out of phase only here. I have a sneaking suspicion that the extra bass in the glissando is covering up an edit. Listening normally, there is bass in every glissando, but this must be an extra bit that's coming in either left or right, and I think it is covering up an edit, but I can't be sure. There's an edit in the word me here, and unless it's my vivid imagination, it all starts to speed up again. Something very rare for ABBA now. At 4:11, there's a glitch in the main vocal track. I think it's through the word devotion. It's either devotion or emotion. There's another loud snare at 4:18, which conceals another edit, I think. The Super Trooper CD crossfades Lay Your Love on Me into The Way All Friends Do. Now, at the exact point where the tracks change, which I'm calling 4:34, because you can't hear it if you just queue up your CD player for track 10. You've got to be listening to the crossfade. There's a tiny snatch of accordion which plays very faintly the introduction of The Way All Friends Do. It's just a da-da-da-da-da, that tiny little bit there, and I've got a feeling that they tried to erase it or something and then start the main track later.